enormous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
What is up, everybody? This is Hater Radio. That was my phone footage I got at the Rose Bowl yesterday of the flyover. I'm here with my co-host Ian Gibson. How are you?
I'm doing really good. It was not the most exciting. Well, two were, and then the other two were kind of layups. But especially towards the end, it got real interesting, that Sugar Bowl, which we'll get into.
No, I mean, this is exactly okay. Last year, the first round was kind of whatever. So a lot of people were like, oh, we should have never expanded. And, you know, there were a few games last year after that round that kind of like, okay, a little bit better. You know, the semifinals last year were good games with Texas and Ohio State, and then Notre Dame and Penn State. And then this year, you know, again, there were some rough games in the first round, but then, you know, you had a tremendous Ohio State-Miami game. You had a tremendous Ole Miss Georgia game that literally got down to the last second, and then a couple of stinkers. So, you know, it just depends. I mean, honestly, football, there's going to be blowouts no matter what. Like how good teams are, good teams get blown out. I mean, I remember Super Bowls when I was a kid. Like I wasn't around for the Denver 49ers Super Bowl, but I remember always hearing about how bad of a blowout that one was, how bad the Bears Patriots Super Bowl was a blowout. I remember the Niners Chargers Super Bowl. That was a blowout. It just happens. Like, no matter how good another team is in football, you can get blown out. That's just the reality. And, you know, even in the basketball tournament, and I keep bringing it up, in the basketball tournament, you know, there are blowouts. Even if, like, you know, a seed is like a 7-10 game, it can be like a 30-point blowout in those 7-10 matchups sometimes. So, you know, I'm grateful that we're getting an expanded playoff and potentially up to 16 teams next year. We'll see. I don't know what it's going to do. But again, we've talked about this. I really want the FCS model. I think that's the best case scenario. I think that brings every conference into the table, into the mix. You get all the at-large teams, and there's literally no complaints. I don't think anyone wants a team outside of the top 25 in. I mean, besides the conference winners. So, like, we will essentially get all of the teams from the top 25, which, hey, that's what we want. We want good teams playing this sport and into the playoff. This is exactly what we'll get. So hopefully we'll get in that future. But let's jump into these games. The CFP Quarterfinal Recap show that we're here doing. The first game is Miami, Ohio State. Ian, set the table for us.
Yeah, so this game definitely did not go the way we would have expected because it was kind of role reversal. We were saying Miami was going to have to get the breaks. Now, here's the thing. Ohio State picked the worst possible time to play their worst game. I think without a doubt this was their worst game of the year, and it hinged on two major mistakes, and I think anybody who watched the game knows what they are. Obviously, that pick six, which even from that bubble screen, I went, don't throw it. Do not throw that ball because that safety's right there. They were reading that bubble screen the entire time, and it went for six the other way. But I actually thought, for me, the biggest missed opportunity for Ohio State was that missed field goal. Because think about it like this. It's a tie game, 17-17, and then Miami scores, or at the very least, Ohio State could force a field goal in that situation. So when they get the ball back, it's not a two-possession game with very little time left. and they're just going to have to chuck it and hope for an onside kick. It's a much different game if they make that field goal. All that being said, Miami's defense is just showing how elite they are. I know there's obviously the defense was gotten a lot of, noise and recognition, but I don't think to the extent of how well they are playing. I thought for sure with Ohio State, with the weapons they have, with Jeremiah Smith, Tate, and how good Sayan is with his decision-making, they would have been able to at least been able to find some creases in the defense. But that defense was giving them nothing. And the major thing was there was next to no run game whatsoever for Ohio State. Bo Jackson could not get anything on the ground. It was very one-dimensional for Ohio State, which is exactly what Miami wanted. Offensively, Miami did enough. And the thing is, too, they played much more balanced than Ohio State did. And again, they made less mistakes. Ohio State made the mistakes more than the Hurricanes, and they paid for it. I mean, I know this is an upset for sure. I remember Urban Meyer saying all Ohio State needs to do is score 14 points. Well, they did. So they got that part done, but they just could not stop Miami towards the end because the defense just got worn down. And I mentioned that too, was that the hope was that Miami could wear down that defense and rip off some big plays, and they did. The other thing too is that Miami was playing keep away. They had they won the time of possession battle. They won the third. They converted on half their third downs. They won all the, kind of hustle stats, shall we say, in the game. And yeah, Miami deserved to win that game. That's what I came out of it, is that they played better, they looked better, and they got the job done where Ohio State couldn't.
I mean, I will counter on this. I think that that pick six was huge because they were at the 20-yard line, and it was right after a sack on Sayan. And, yes, the field goal kicker is a little shaky, so it's not a guaranteed that it was 3, but that was second down. There's a chance if that play's just blown up and it goes for a loss that they still get a few more yards. I mean, that would have been like a 35-yard field goal probably. Not a terrible tough field goal. He probably could have made that one. So right there, at minimum, it was a 10-point swing. And so, Miami, the rest of the way, up until the last drive that they had, when they scored that last touchdown to ice it, they had 10 points offensively. So it wasn't like Miami was moving the ball all over the place. I mean, Beck had 138 yards. Tony fumbled the ball twice, lucky to get both of them back. Fletcher, again, I will say Fletcher is probably right now, he's the MVP of this team as far as offense goes. Bain had another tremendous game and was in the backfield a ton. I felt like he was more so in the first couple of drives for Ohio State. Later on, Ohio State really started to turn it on. I mean, they had, those 2 drives plus the field goal drive that missed the field goal, and they were moving the ball quite well. Jeremiah Smith had a hell of a game. Yeah. Making a ton of plays left and right. I mean, saying outside of that last interception at the very end, I thought he had a really good game. I thought he was pretty accurate. He had 287 yards. Again, that play is so crucial to the entire complexity of the game because at that point it was 7-0. If Ohio State does not, I don't know. The only scenario where it's not a touchdown is if it's just a tackle for loss. So it's not even whatever. So I'm thinking probably the only other thing that it could have been is 3 points. So I don't think they probably score a touchdown, but they were able to convert some long third down. So who knows? Jeremiah Smith was getting open. So was Carnell Tate. Ennis was making plays. The run game was you said it was bad, but Donaldson had 4 yards average and Jackson had a 5-yard average. So they were able to move the ball a little bit. The rush total is low because the sack numbers. So the sack numbers are going to put the number down, but it was still around I think it was 80 some odd yards between the two of them, which is not terrible. I mean, it wasn't like Miami had a million yards; they had 150. They still were able to move the ball with Fletcher, and I think Brown near the end of the game, those last couple of runs really kind of sealed it off. But I will say Miami did what they did against Texas A&M, where they just bludgeoned them at the end. You know, they didn't ask Beck to do much. You know, 138 yards is not it's not a ton of yards at all for someone that is allegedly at one point of number 1 overall pick. You know, they're not asking him to do much. They're asking him to hand the ball off to their playmakers. He didn't make mistakes when called upon. Again, Tony kind of out of this game. It didn't look like Ohio State was doubling him, but he just didn't have like that crazy big game like he's had before in the past. Because I mean, he only had 20 total yards, and he didn't have they didn't do one of those like Tony passes where he like takes the handoff or the direct snap and then like curls to the right and then throws it off. So they didn't do that, which is kind of interesting. I'm surprised they didn't do that. Tight end play wasn't much. But again, also though with Miami, and I will counter with most of my narrative here, that Miami was driving early. And I will say that first half, Miami was the better team because they had like, I think 2 or 3 drives into Ohio State's territory. They had the fumble lost by Fletcher, which was a huge play.
Yeah.
Like honestly, because that could have been if they would have been down 14-0 right away, right there into the second quarter, and then get that interception return for a touchdown. If they were up 21-0, that game was over. Like so, like they had to like, you know, Miami's a good team. I'm not denying that. I don't think I've ever denied that all year. I thought Ohio State was going to play a better game. I thought they played good enough to win. You know, really, honestly, I mean, my biggest contention with this whole thing, this whole game, is that one play. I think that one play really changed everything, and it really, you know, it basically changes the whole scenario. Because if at that point it's 7-3, at worst, maybe even 7-7. You know, that game's completely different. And, you know, we see maybe Ohio State going forth there and being more of an offensive force into that game. But, Miami, held its own. And that play was great. Scott, read that. He got underneath Jeremiah Smith. The tight end comes through, but the tight end was already past him. And then he just took off. Like he was gone. Like the second he caught it, there was no way anybody was catching him. Yeah. Jeremiah Smith tried, but that guy was just way already behind him by like 15 yards. There's no way he was catching him. And Miami now with their games coming up, like they have a real shot. Like I did not expect them to beat A&M. Even though A&M was flawed as far as their offense, Marcel Reed is kind of limited. I thought Julian Sayin was a better quarterback and would pose a bigger threat. But I think because of his lack of mobility per se, I think Chambliss presents the biggest threat to them, because you saw that in the Georgia game, and we'll talk about it a little bit later. But I think Chambliss is a really tough go for them, because they had a tough go against Miller Moss and Jennings from SMU. And I think Chambliss is like a souped up version of both of those guys. And like in way less, he doesn't turn the ball over and makes a ton of plays. And he can get away from a guy like Bain and get away from Messidor. And like, I don't know. I mean, it's going to be an interesting game. Do you have any more thoughts on this one before we move to the Orange Bowl?
No, just again, I felt like even with everything Ohio State was doing, Miami just played better. They made the bigger plays when it mattered, and they wore down that Ohio State defense. And they got the win and they got the upset to move on. I don't know if they avenged the 2002 national championship, but I think they'll take this anyways.
Yeah, I mean it's funny because it's like that was 22, 23 years ago. Those kids on these teams, they have no recollection of that. The only thing they're going to see it is on YouTube, and like it doesn't mean that much to them. I think Miami fans, it meant a lot because of being a national championship taken away from them in the very last second was rough, but the players, they don't care. And like it is interesting that it's been this long that they finally have back on the national stage. But we'll see. I'm very intrigued about this next game. But let's move on. Orange Bowl in Miami. It was Oregon and Texas Tech. I didn't get a chance to watch this live because I was in a lot of traffic heading to the Rose Bowl, so I didn't really get to diagnose this at all. But I did watch the recap, and man, a ton of turnovers. Like, Morton was throwing a lot of interceptions. He had a sack fumble at one point. Dickey even had a fumble, which I was surprised about. It was just like on a spin move he was doing, and he fumbled it. And I'm like, I was so surprised because like we've been on Texas Tech all year about how much we have been fans of them, and to see them struggle to like do anything at all. They couldn't hit field goals. They couldn't hit the explosive. They had the one explosive by Williams, that run, and a couple of catches by Virgil, and that was about it. And like, it's a shame because I thought this Texas Tech was going to be a real player in this playoffs, but they get smoked and they're gone. And I mean, they didn't even have 200. They had 215 yards. Like, that is brutal. And like, it wasn't like Oregon, was dominating offensively because they had a lot of, they had 8 fourth down attempts and they only converted 4 of them, which is still good, but it's a lot though, 8 of them. So they were getting stops. Texas Tech, it was the defense that was keeping them in this game. Like, if it wasn't for Texas Tech's defense, this game could have been a lot worse. And because they weren't doing anything offensively and the defense kept them, it was a 16 point game with like a couple minutes, no, it was seconds left. They scored the last touchdown late. So it was a 2-score game all the way till the very end. So they were in this game theoretically if they just got any offense at all, and they just couldn't do anything. And they kept turning the ball over, giving Oregon short fields. Again, credit to the defense to keep them in it, but they just couldn't do anything. Your thoughts on this game, Ian?
Yeah, and even with that, Oregon wasn't looking as effective. This score still could have been worse because there was a lot of fourth down conversions that Oregon just missed on. They were only, I think, converted on half of them. They went for 8. That's what Texas Tech's defense showed up. But there was a lot of times too where it was thinking, I was watching the game with George, and I'm like, I don't know, man, you just take the points here. I get you're in the red zone, you want to be aggressive, but landing a couple of times was just not. I get being aggressive, getting the conversion, but this game you could have added 3 more. It could have been like 29-0, or if they converted on those fourth downs, they could have, put it into the end zone. But that Oregon defense just was stifling on Texas Tech, and Texas Tech just could not stop shooting themselves in the foot. The 4 turnovers, especially the no pun intended duck into the end zone, which was
dude, that's exactly what I wrote in my notes.
Yeah, no pun intended, duck thrown into the end zone, because I saw that thrown and I was like, oh, okay, so he's an Oregon fan.
That was word for word what I wrote, and I was about to put no pun intended, and I didn't. It's so hilarious that you said that.
But I think everybody thought the same thing because it was,
it was ugly.
It dropped right into his hands, and that was Tech's best, drive. Other than that, they barely crossed the 50. So Oregon just completely strangles, Texas Tech here. Surprise! I think this is the 3rd shutout in playoff history. Because I know Michigan State got shut out by Bama, and then Ohio State got shut out by Clemson. So this would have been the 3rd, yeah.
Yeah.
But, yeah, the 4 turnovers were just absolutely killer. And like I said, it could have been worse. Oregon, if they convert on those fourth downs or take the points, this score would have looked a lot uglier. And that's kind of the other thing too, is Oregon didn't look great. They haven't really they looked good in the first half against James Madison, and they were good enough in the second half against James Madison. And this one, they were good enough just getting on Morton in this whole game. And so the defense has looked great, but we're looking to see, it's what I've been saying all year. We need a whole game, a full 4 quarters with Oregon, because now you got to play Indiana. And if sure we're going to talk about it, they're not going to give you any, leeway. You're going to have to play the whole game if you got any chance of winning.
Yep, definitely agree. It's just a shame because we watched Texas Tech all year, with the talent that they had, and we thought, that they would have been right there with any one of these teams and that they could have been a contender, and they pooped the bed. They really did. That's what it was. And it's a shame because it's like, it happens though. That's why the crazy thing about it is with these bye weeks, they had I don't know how many days off because the Big 12 championship game was December 5th or something like that.
Yeah.
So that was 25 days off. No, go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm kind of a proponent. This is something that they're mentioning because obviously only one team is one off its bye. And going further back, there's even to the days of the BCS before there was regular conference champions. I'm of the notion that there needs to be some way where maybe we just eliminate buys because they're clearly not working and they're showing that rust is effective. Example, here's a good example. Obviously, I remember this one. We remember this one. 2006 national championship. Florida goes to the SEC championship and, beats Arkansas, jumps into number 2. Ohio State literally had a month off till the national championship. They beat Michigan November 21st or something like that, and they didn't play another game until January 6th, I think. Was that game. And they got blown out. And you've seen that with a lot of teams. Notre Dame didn't play a conference championship game in 2013, got blown out. You've seen all these teams that have these bye weeks, and I don't know. I feel like you kind of do have an advantage. It's weird, but we're kind of seeing that teams that get that kind of that come off the win the week before have that momentum and that advantage. So I don't know what you can do to fix that, but that's just one thing I was thinking of is there, maybe there's a way they can kind of circumvent bye weeks or something like that. I don't know how you do it, but try something because clearly it's not as, the intention isn't, being executed to what they want it to be.
I'm going to interject with 2 things. One, I kind of agree, but then it's also, with the buys in the NFL hasn't really hurt most teams because most teams that are a first or second round or first or second seed in the NFL usually have done quite well. A lot of Super Bowl winners have come from those positions. So it does help in that case. I think with these young teams, with these college players, maybe it's not as good to take so much time off. But the one thing I wanted to show before we moved on, I want to jump back into the Miami game. I was just amazed that this was not called targeting because, we had the Texas A&M game where Bridges hits the guy's backside and, using the crown of his helmet, and it probably was targeting, but that is called, which bizarrely it was. And then this was not a flag, not even anything, not a review, nothing. And I was just kind of okay, this guy clearly used the crown of his helmet, drilled the guy right in the chest, and nothing is called. They did call it targeting in the Georgia game, which I was okay, that was the right call. But hold on a second, everybody. No, I don't know. It doesn't matter. It's just one call because in that game, in the Miami game, I wanted to mention as well, there were 2 penalties, and somehow Miami, which is like one of the most penalized teams in the entire country, had 0 penalties, which just kind of blows my mind that they had 0 penalties that whole game. Just they were letting them play, which I somewhat agree with because it was more enjoyable and we didn't have like a lot of stoppages and a lot of, stupid penalties that changed the course of the game. But whatever. I just wanted to point that out. Let's move on to the Rose Bowl, which I was at on yesterday, which is Thursday. I'm so confused with these days because the holidays really kind of like mess you up with like where you're at and like what's going on. So I like thought today was Monday, like the whole day for the most part. And I'm like, no, it's Friday. So like, just getting my bearings. But no, it was honestly, I love going to this game, and shout out to our friend Jessica Rodriguez, a huge USC fan who works for the City of Hope. And she wasn't able to go to the game because it was too rainy during the parade because she was in the parade, the Rose Bowl parade, and she was like, I'm not going to be able to go. So just, can you guys want to go? And I was like, yeah, of course. And she had actually gave us tickets 2 years ago when the Alabama-Michigan game for the playoff game as well. So thank you to Jess. It was a
she
great.
Could also just not be a fan of Alabama. I'm noticing a theme here.
Yeah, I know. It's funny that it was both times that it's Alabama. But I'm actually glad it was Indiana because I knew Indiana was going to score points. So I'm like, oh, I want to see this live. Signetti. I love Signetti.
Yeah.
And but I will say we had the worst Indiana fan imaginable next to us. And my wife was so livid and like just annoyed by this guy. And I was too. He just was so obnoxious. And it's like, it's a shame because it seemed like there was a lot of good Indiana fans, but this guy was just like so over the top about like being downplayed in the media, especially Paul Feinbaum. He kept bringing up and like SEC schedule. He said SEC schedule like, I'm no joke, like 10 times, and he just like could not like let it go. And there was a Bama fan next to us.
Oh man,
dude. This guy was huge. He was like 6'3" at least, like probably 300 pounds. And he finally at one point, he just goes, hey, act like you've been there or something. I ruined it. My wife did it better. She's got it down really great. She's like, he just like did it so like coolly and calmly. And the guy just like, dude, he shut up for like 10, 15 minutes. And then near like the fourth quarter, he like got into it back and forth and was like chummy with him, but it was funny. I was just like, man,
I know I'm going off on a tangent here, but I got 2 similar stories. One of them from this year, the other was the year. So I went to the Florida UCF game with my brother-in-law and my cousin, cousin-in-law. And there was obviously there was a good UCF crowd. Anytime they play a Florida team, you're going to get a lot of, that school's fans.
Right.
And this UCF fan was there, and I'm sure he was half joking and half serious. But he was talking trash about, we beat you guys last year and, we won the most recent national championship, which, okay, blah, blah, blah. He was going at it with – that's why I was like, there's no way this guy's real. There's no way this guy's legit. And then one Gator fan went up to him, and where we were sitting, this facade where all the national championships are, he goes, hey, buddy, you see that? We have real ones.
Yeah.
And then the other one was this year when we went to the North Texas game. I want to preface this. North Texas, obviously that was the first sellout. Those North Texas fans had every right to get as loud as possible and to be as, crazy. But we had one heavy-set fellow behind me, my uncle, and my 2 cousins who just would not stop talking crap about USF. Like, he would, obviously North Texas would get a good play at the beginning, and then we go, crap, and we like sit down, and he goes, why aren't you guys standing anymore? Blah, blah, blah. And then when it got into the third quarter and we scored like 4 straight touchdowns, one of the few times I've done this that didn't involve a Lightning game and a Panther fan, I looked him dead in the eye and go, hey, what are you doing sitting down, bud?
Nice.
Because I'm not usually like, look, if you're a fan of your team, you have every right to celebrate, but
yeah,
Yeah. Anyways, tangents.
No,
Besides
that was great because it's something, sometimes we don't talk about it as much, but we go to these games just like y'all. We're fans, and it's ribbing back and forth, and it just was funny because the guy is this huge guy, and he just like stoically just like, hey, act like you've been there before, and like just dude, the kid just shut up, and it was oof, chef's kiss. It was great. Okay, so let's get into the game, and it wasn't that great of a game because Indiana just blew them out completely. Ty Simpson got hurt, broke a rib. He was out by like, I think it was it was a play where he was running the ball.
he got hit in the back
fumbled, and he got hit in the back. Yeah, and he fumbled it. So I don't remember when exactly he went out. I think it was into the second half. I think that's when it was. And Indiana was up. I think they were up 17-0 at half. And it was just there was nothing they could do. Like Alabama could not stop Indiana in any which way. I mean, Mendoza didn't even throw the ball a ton. He was 14 of 16, which is not that many passes, but he was super efficient, and he had 192 yards and 3 TDs. I mean, that is near perfection of a passing game, even though it's limited yards per se because it was only 16 completions. But Kalen Black, Hemby, both over 89 yards. Black had 99. They both had a touchdown apiece. The receivers, no one really had a huge game, but they all contributed a ton. Nowakowski had a good game. Defense, they were all over Alabama. Alabama, again, cannot run the ball. They only had 23 total rush yards. I don't know what happened to Jam Miller again. I don't know if he was hurt. Daniel Hill was in for a good amount of the carries and just couldn't really do much. He only had 13 yards, did Hill. Jam Miller had like one catch, and that was it. So I don't know what's going on with him, if he's still hurt or what. His, this year for him has been kind of rough. He's was hurt for most of the year. Kind of a really weak showing by Alabama. I mean, they defensively, they could not stop Indiana. I saw the guy Hubbard, the DB for Alabama, saying that it was like a few plays away from stopping them completely. I'm like, no, you weren't. Like, you did nothing to really pose a threat at all. I mean, there were a couple like sacks and tackle for losses early in the first half, but that went away in the second half. And Indiana, I mean, I told my wife when we got into the second half, I was like, this could get ugly. Like, I knew it. I was like, Cignetti is not going to take it easy. He's going to take no prisoners, and he's going to put it on them, especially because it's his former team. He used to coach there, and he's going to want to show off and like prove his point that he's a good coach and he's, deserves it. And dude, they just beat them like a drum. And it was honestly, it could have been a lot worse. I think it could have been like a 45 or 52-3 game, which would have been embarrassing for Alabama and all those fans, because there were a lot of Alabama fans there, and they were they disappointed. But your thoughts, Ian?
So, fans of NFL Blitz, and this is for Alabama fans.
What a truly pathetic display.
I mean, that was, I said it while watching the game. I said, this is the worst Alabama I have ever seen Alabama, regardless of who was coaching, of who they were playing. They were dead from the get-go. As soon as that fourth down conversion got stopped, it was over. Even if I think Indiana might have been up like 10-0 or 7-0.
Yeah.
But I was like, after that, the wheels fell off. Indiana was not giving Bama anything. The last time Bama had a good drive was when Mack came in to cover for Simpson, and he got some good passes in, but then they got in his face. And Mac had what, maybe 16 passes all year, so he just was not seasoned into that role yet. So Indiana looked like what we are used to seeing from Bama from the 2010s with Saban.
Yeah,
They
exactly.
just completely dominated Alabama at their own game. They ran the ball down their throat, and when they had to come up with big plays and big catches, Mendoza hit it, and that was the thing. It was like run to perfection. It was run, 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 and then a play action pass. Have either Becker, Cooper, one of them catch it, and it could not have looked any easier for Indiana. And for Bama, I mean, again, totally dominated. They got doubled up in yardage. They had the fumble, turnover, but there were so many 3-and-outs. There were so many stalled drives. They barely crossed the 50, and Indiana just would not let off the gas. And yeah, all I could say is, Indiana, this is your, for the moment, best moment in program history, beating Alabama. And I said this too. I was like, man, they are really not doing a good job, proving the doubters wrong that they shouldn't have belonged there, or they, are making the SEC look better. Total side note, the SEC has had a god-awful bowl season, but man, Alabama, that was rough. I would say the last time I remember them having a loss that bad might have been when they lost to Clemson in 2018.
Yeah.
But this was a whole other. This feels. I'm not trying to sound the alarm bells because of everything, and especially with how high the expectations are, and trying to temper them. But I mean, it just felt like this was a different Bama team. Like clearly, I was sure that was everybody's thought was, if Saban was still on the sideline, would it have been that bad? I don't know if it would have. I still think Indiana would have won. Like, I don't think anybody was going to stop Indiana that day. But Indiana looked like the better team. They looked like they were the number one team in the country, and they will also take the title as the only team to win off a bye week in the college football playoff.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like it's the end of the dynasty. Like I mentioned it last night, and then the other people on that I'm mutual follows with were talking about how it's their Muschamp era, and it really does feel like it. It's like, that's what happens when you follow a legend. Typically, who follows a legend is someone that cannot live up to the legend, and it's just the reality. And it might be over for them. Like, it might, like, and it's funny because if you see like the crowd shots, like they looked like they were like stunned and just like
they were like, oh, this is what it's like. Yeah. That's what I thought. Was like, now they get a taste of their own medicine. I mean,
seriously, like they've had the gravy train for like 15 years, and to now it being like longer. I think it was like, what was it, 2007, 8,
2000. I would probably say, I mean, it depends on how you count it. 2008 was when they went to the SEC championship and lost to Florida. 2009 was when they won their first national title, and then the Death Star was destroyed after that.
So then we'll say like 15 years. So they had a great run for 15 years, made almost every single playoff except for like 3, I think, in the entire run of the playoff, which is quite remarkable. And now they look beatable. They look very vulnerable. They look susceptible to teams that have good lines, which Alabama was the trenches team. Now they don't have that. And, it's interesting because it's like Alabama thought they were going to just keep running this same thing. And I don't think it's going to happen. And it's nice because it's like, I feel like Florida made the move, and now they have the real opportunity to really kind of step back into the mix. I love what Summerall has done with Faulkner and some of the hires. I mean, Phil Troutwayne, we haven't talked about this, but do you remember Phil from the 06 and 08 championship?
Oh, yeah.
And so, like, he is like considered one of the best O-line coaches in the entire country, and he's not going anywhere. Like, literally, he only wants to coach O-line, and he loves Gainesville and the University of Florida. and I think was waiting for the moment to come back to the school. I think he is like locked in. And so like I've already seen countless 5 stars, 4 stars, like former Penn State players wanting to transfer. And it's like, oh man, I'm so excited to like finally get like solid trenches again. And to the point where, you know, the run game will be better. I mean, the run game's good with Baugh, but you know, a lot of that last couple of years was Baugh making people miss because he's so good. So I can't wait. He gets an actual good O-line if he comes back, then it's like, man, it'll be dominant. But tangent. Let's get on task. We'll finish this off here. Last game. And the game of the night, game of the year, probably.
Yeah.
I mean, this game was back and forth. We talked about it coming in. I didn't think Ole Miss had a shot because of their defense. And it almost was the reason they lost because Georgia was scoring at will for the most part outside of a handful of plays that Ole Miss was able to stop them. But, you know, Ole Miss, I will say their offense was stout. Like Chambliss, he is such a revelation. Like the kid is just unreal. He is super athletic, very fast. His arm is very lively, accurate. He doesn't make mistakes. They have a ton of wide receivers. He had Stribling. I'm thinking of Texas Tech. Stribling, Wallace. Wright made a couple of plays. He had some drops early. Lacey had the fumble, which could have been detrimental, but it was a return for a touchdown. And at that point, when it was 21-12, it looked like what I thought was going to happen. Georgia was going to take control because I was like, Ole Miss had to play perfect on offense just to have a shot, and they missed it right there. But besides that, honestly, outside of that play, their offense pretty much was perfect. Mm-hmm. Like they had those drives to get in field goal range, and that kicker, man, that is one of the best field goal kicking like presentations or like performances in college I think I've ever seen. He kicked a 55-yarder, a 56-yarder, and then the game winner, like ice in his veins, and it was a no-doubter. All 3 of those were no-doubters. And he, like, man, he was the reason they pretty much won this game. Like, Chambliss and the kicker.
Yeah.
Like, those 2 were just nails, man. They made play after play. This was a great game. And to see Georgia lose in the playoffs is such a joy. Yep. Like, I loved it. I was even this morning, I'm just like, man, Georgia lost. And I was so happy just because they lost. And it's like, now what would have been the worst case scenario, because it would have been Georgia and Miami in the semifinals. And I would have been, oh my Lord, if that would have happened, I don't think I could have watched the game, because I don't know. I couldn't have rooted for either of them, but now I don't have to. And hopefully Miami loses the next game and we don't have to worry about them. But no, this was a tremendous game. The crazy finish was wild because it was like the end of the game was there was a kickoff return. They tried throwing it to the side.
Safety
goes in the end zone because it hits the pylon. So it's a safety. They get a kick, which they onside, which was funny. I saw someone mention it in the NCAA football game. They don't allow you to onside kick safeties.
No.
So I don't know how it was allowed. I guess it's maybe part of the rules that you can onside kick it. The football game just never allows you to. But they onside kick it, somehow recover it without a second going off, which I don't know how is even theoretically possible. And they get a play, three plays in the span of 6 seconds. Mind blowing that was even possible. And they just pulled the shenanigans trying to throw it back and forth, and they couldn't get it going. I will say Gunnar Stockton did not have a great game. I think he did enough to win for them. That last drive was impressive. Or not the last drive, the second to last drive, where they needed to score a touchdown quick, and they scored within it was like a minute, like 50. So that was probably the most impressive thing Georgia did all night, was that drive. The rest of it, I think they were kind of underwhelming. Frazier, I don't know what happened to him. I think he hurt his knee, but they never really, I don't ever hear Did you ever hear if he got?
No, I never heard of an update.
But he didn't come back after he got hurt. But I don't know. Stockton got rocked a bunch of times.
Yeah.
There was like 3 or 4 times where it was like one of the gnarliest hits I've ever seen. I was like, ooh, and like he was definitely I'm sure he was concussed, but they just, for whatever reason, it's funny because like they're supposed to like be monitoring these kids, and that kid was clearly like a concussion because it was like he got hit, his head goes back, and then he fell onto the field and like slammed his head, and nobody took him out or whatever. I mean, I know it's player safety and they're gonna do whatever they want. And I will say the one thing that really pissed me off about this game was that that face mask on Eddie Lacy.
Yeah.
Not Eddie Lacy. I keep how do you say Lacy's first name? Kewan Lacy. I said Eddie Lacy while I was watching the highlights. And I'm like, that's not Eddie Lacy. That was 15 years ago. I'm like, but no, Lacy was took a handoff, and then one of the Georgia defenders grabs his face mask and just yanks on it, and no penalty at all. I'm like, there's refs all over the field watching this, and nobody saw that. I'm like, this game, like that game, it could have like hinged on that play, because that was I think that was a second down, might have been a second or third down, and it would have given them a first down and a fresh set of downs and like a chance to really move the ball there. And it's like, I don't know. I'm not going to be totally like, I got to every play, but because there were a couple of things that Ole Miss did that they could have called as well. There was a potential holding on the Lacy run for a touchdown. But no, Chambliss, tremendous game. I loved every second of it. Huge fan of this game. Just, this is what this expanded playoff was all about. Like, this gave us everything that we've ever wanted, like in a game. Like, it's like last second finish, back and forth. Like, it was like so many lead changes and just tremendous game. Your thoughts, Ian?
Yeah, and throughout this game too, I was feeling many moments of like PTSD with this team, because I said Georgia just finds a way to win these games, especially when it was they went up 21, and when Ole Miss there was that scoop and score. When that scoop and score happened, I was like, that's it, that's the play, because Georgia always, they convert on these plays, they lock down on defense, and Ole Miss is going to have a tough time sledding. And especially how that second half ended too, when they they threw the ball, caught it in bounds, so there were no points on that last drive for Ole Miss. I'm thinking, man, it is all Georgia. They've got again, with history, I'm thinking Georgia's got this. You're up 21-13 going into, or 21-12 going into the third quarter, and you were stifling Ole Miss at that point. But then Trinidad Chambliss, he did the backyard football plays and found ways to convert on third downs. Georgia was too, but it was easily the best game of the night and up there with the best game of the year. And still in the, what it was? I swear to you, I was watching the game, and when it was that field goal, I was literally thinking 3 years ago when it was Ohio State and Georgia in that Sugar Bowl, and I went, oh God, it's going to happen again. He's going to miss it. He's going to miss it wide left, and we're going to go into overtime. That one was for the game. This one at least would have been, if you miss it, you would have had overtime. But I was like, he's going to miss it, and Georgia's going to find a way to win this one, because they're, the cockroach that no matter can of raid just won't die. But those Rebels found the super effective raid, found a way to beat Georgia. And I sent it to George when they had to put the stage back. It was like the scene in SpongeBob where they're pushing the town, and it's like, push. So I thought I gotta get a kick out of that, but I was literally thinking, like, please God, just end the game, stop, like, just let Georgia die. But other than that, obviously, as a Gator fan, I appreciated it, because if they can't go to a bowl game and win, this is up there. But Ole Miss did a fantastic, job coming back, beating the narrative that Georgia had. Because again, after that scoop and score, I thought, like, yeah, they're done. They're like, they should be getting the water, and somehow, some way, they snuck out, found a way to win, which was incredible. What I also is not lost on me too is you cannot tell me in the back of my mind, even when he's sending those tweets out, Lane Kiffin is going, damn, I could have been there right now. Because now they have beaten Georgia, which he couldn't do this year.
Yeah.
And have won more playoff games and major bowl games than he has ever done. So I was another thing too. I was like, somewhere in the back of his mind, he's thinking, sometimes grass don't always greener, but clearly that's early thoughts. But other than that, fantastic game. Ole Miss gets the win. And for Georgia, really shocking because I thought they were the best looking team besides Indiana going into this. And to lose to Ole Miss, especially with how bad we saw their defense, because Georgia's offense did their job. Yeah. They got 34 points on the board. Yeah. And surprisingly, the defense just had no answer for Chambliss and Lacey. So, yeah, it's just the same thing as last year. They picked the worst time to turtle in the Sugar Bowl. Maybe that's the thing. They just need to stop playing the Sugar Bowl.
Yeah. The two things I wanted to note before we go, Lacey had a much better game than the first game. 2 TDs, nearly 100 yards. I think he only had like 30-something in the first game. And then I thought the tight ends were going to be a bigger concern again for Georgia, that they were going to get some yardage there. Between Delp and Lucky, they only had 2 catches. And I think one of them was on that 4th down fake punt. And Stockton, not a ton of yards, but he did have the 2 TDs, and he was a little elusive on some things, but not as elusive as he was in the first game. So this game, honestly, credit to Pete Golding doing the things necessary to get enough stops against Georgia to make a difference here. But again, it was all Ole Miss's offense. Everything in this game, when they went up 10 points in the 4th quarter, they should have been able to easily win this one, but Georgia was coming back, and like you said, they never die. They just kept going, and credit to Ole Miss staying with it and getting that. Oh, dude, the one thing I want to talk about, Sean McDonough's call, and I know you're too young for this. The greens behind the defense.
Yeah. In the swamp.
Dude, I got like goosebumps because it was like, oh my God, and it was like so like kismet, so much like synergy with like the same like similar play and like getting behind the defense and being like the turning point in the game. And it's like, man, that was so cool. And like I met him years ago when I was a valet and a bellman at this hotel in Ponte Vedra, Sawgrass, the Marriott there. And like he was super nice and super cool. And like I've always been a really big fan. The one thing I've been kind of mad about him is he disses the Rays a lot and St. Pete.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, whatever. It is what it is. Everyone kind of goes after St. Pete because of the crowd. But no, he's a tremendous professional. He's been around for like 40 years. He really, honestly, his calls like that'll go down again. Like it went down with Jaquez Green, and even Jaquez tweeted it out like after it happened. And like it was such a great call, and he did it again. It was like so many similarities, and it was it was so enjoyable. I loved it. You have any more thoughts before we go?
No, the only other 2 things with McDonough is have I ever told you my nickname for him?
What?
Voice Crack McGee.
Yeah.
Is he voice crack, which isn't his fault. It's just like, it's when he voice cracks, that's when it's a big play.
Yeah. And
that, is always fun.
It's just like his trademark. And I think it's endearing. I think a lot of people actually like it.
Yeah.
So
that's how I know it's him. It's or when it's a big play is like, oh, his voice cracked. Okay. So we had a really good play there.
Yeah. And like, you can tell like he's enthused, and that's where it's like, it's authentic. And I think that's something that, with some of these guys, it maybe seem a little inauthentic, and it definitely is authentic with Sean. But great game. So we are going to do a show on Sunday for the preview show. So we'll have our regular show on Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, but we're not going to have a show Wednesday. So Sunday is the preview show for the semifinals. And then the following, I believe, Sunday, we'll do the recap of the semifinals. So as of right now, we only have, I think, 3 more shows to go.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. It's already near the end of the year. But check us out at haterradio.com. For all of the socials, it's Hater Radio. Type it in. Ian, what's your handles real quick?
Yeah, at X, it's at G5 Gibson, and at Instagram and YouTube, it's at G_Gator_G.
Okay, that is the show, y'all. Enjoy these games that are coming up. I'm looking forward to them. I'm really excited. Have a good weekend. Happy New Year. Happy New Year, Ian. I'm looking forward to what's going to go on in the future. We are up to like nearly 4,500 subscribers. Thank you, each and every one of you, for making this show, this brand, something that people enjoy. I think our enjoyment, our joy, our love for college football is evident by the way we talk about it. We love talking with y'all. Please like, subscribe, share, comment, anything. It helps us out in the algorithm a ton. We really appreciate all of you guys for watching the show. And hopefully 2026 is going to be a great year for everybody. And we'll see you on Sunday. All right. Take care, y'all.